For the last few years, I've been incredibly spoiled on high-end bikes, just like this Propain Sresh SL. It's been exclusively high-end machinery, top-tier suspension, fancy drivetrains, and lots of travel. But today, we are going back to basics. My very first real mountain bike was a Polygon Siskiyou D7. It was an awesome starter bike, but it taught me a brutal lesson. It was a dead end. Upgrading it didn't make much financial sense because you were stuck with entry-level frame and geometries and old standards. You capped out fast. So I decided to test a completely different strategy to beat the bike industry pricing game. Inside this box is a current generation Propain Hugene, the CF3. But instead of a $7,000 or $8,000 dream spec, I went with the cheapest Propain has to offer. To understand why this build is a big deal, we have to talk about Propain's unique way of selling you a bike, their custom build configurator. Unlike most brands that lock you into 3 or 4 rigid builds, Propain lets you pick almost every single part individually. And that is a massive cheat code to get the exact bike you want out of the box instead of doing day one part swaps, and it can save you a lot of money. I clicked right down the line to make sure everything was the cheapest, lowest tier components, heavy alloy wheels, SRAM 70 mechanical shifting, and basic RockShox suspension. But the ultimate cost saver was right here. I selected the rigid seat post option. Okay, I didn't select the cheapest, as I did have them run the cable and housing for me since it's $20, and I would have spent close to that just buying those parts. On a modern trail weapon like this, a rigid seat post is a sin against all things mountain biking. But doing so saved me over $210 from the total price. And I happen to have a dropper from my parts bin that fits this perfect. It's a bold and genius move for Propain to allow this, as even with the bad idea of shipping a base trail weapon with a rigid seat post, you still get the exact same top tier frame bearings, and frame features as the most expensive build they offer. And to me, the best part is Propain having faith in their customers being smart enough to make the best choices for themselves. The plan is simple. Get the top tier frame for as little as possible to see how much of the bike is down to the design of the frame rather than the components. Let's get it on the stand. All right, she's naked on the stand. Let's do a reality check of what the Propain configurator's cheapest build actually is like. I'm used to seeing Kashima coating and the word ultimate, and this is a very different kind of beast compared to that. The lowest end Propain offers is the SRAM Transmission 70. It's mechanical, it's heavier, but it doesn't have a battery or wireless blinking lights. Some would say that's a benefit. It's a T-type, so it's still the direct mount standard. That means you get the exact same bomb-proof hangerless chassis interface as the $2,000 electronic system. It's a workhorse and cheap to fix or replace. Moving to the suspension. RockShox Pike Select up front and Deluxe Select on the rear. Nothing fancy. Just what you need to get out on the trail. And as an added bonus, the setup is simple and straightforward. Set your sag, rebound, and compression and go ride. It gets out of your way and just works. SRAM DB8 brakes. This will be my first time ever riding with SRAM brakes. These are their lowest end model. It saves money on the bike, but will they be enough to handle the steeper descents? The Hugene CF3 frame. The diamond in this rough. Propain doesn't cheap out and change up the carbon layup just because we bought the basic parts. This is the exact same high-end blended carbon frame that ships on their top tier builds. The Pro 10 suspension stays the exact same, even having a carbon top link. Internal cable routing, the in-frame storage, it's all the same as if you spent $8,000. The frame is a work of art and ready for anything. The components, well, this rigid seat post is criminal on a modern 130mm trail bike. It belongs on a road bike. Honestly though, it's a really smart option for Propain to allow, because they know some riders might have an old dropper post laying around in their parts bin. And also, you can find cheaper alternatives to what they offer on their configurator online, though what they have is a really good dropper post selection. Well guys, I actually gotta admit defeat here. I tried to ride wrap this frame and I just could not get the ride wrap edges to stay down properly. Apparently, matte colored frames are much harder to ride wrap properly than gloss frames due to the tiny little micro variations in the paint that makes it matte. And I may have been able to do it, but I didn't want to deal with 6+ hours of frustration for not so great of a job. So I'm actually going to run the frame raw for the first time ever on a carbon frame for me. And I'll see what the results are. For those of you who might be new to mountain biking, most mountain bikes don't come with pedals at all. And when they do, they're pedals you don't really want. So to keep this budget friendly, I bought these $35 50/50 pedals. They're cheap, they aren't fancy aluminum, but they will get the job done because they're from a good known brand. I'm no road rider, so this has to go. This bike needs to have a dropper post. And just like that, it's all finished and ready to ride. The old parts bin dropper is keeping the seat out of the way for the steep descents. And the funny thing about that is this was a day one takeoff of my old Hugene 2 from 2023. The tires are now tubeless for maximum flat protection and grip. And the pedals are going to keep my feet nice and stable. If you happen to be doing a similar build but don't have the parts bin to pull from, don't worry. I'll put some links to some cheap but good parts in the description below so you can get rolling without breaking the bank. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see how much this budget build really weighs. 33.79 pounds. So 33.8 pounds. Almost 34 pounds. That's a bit more than I predicted. But considering it's got heavy alloy wheels, entry-level suspension, heavy mechanical shifting, it's really not that bad of a weight for a frame like this. Now, if I was any other YouTube channel, this is where we'd stop and say this is the weight of the bike. But really, we gotta load this bike up to see how much it truly weighs when you're out on the trail. I'm running trail casing tires on this bike. If I was running gravity casing, I wouldn't have to worry. But with trail casing, I wanna have a pump, bacon strips, tire plugs, and everything you need to make sure you don't get stranded 4 miles out on the trail. Because let me tell you, that's not fun to walk back to the truck. For me, trail ready also means being ready for any issues that might come your way. A full water bottle, since hydration is king, and all the tools you may need. Bacon strips, also known as tire plugs, a tube, and a pump. 36.38 pounds. That's the real world, trail ready weight of this budget tier build. Let's not forget that 1.3 pounds of that is the water, which you will drink as you go. It's got some heft to it, but it's bulletproof and ready for anything the trails might throw at it. A 36-pound trail bike is one thing on paper, but putting it to the test on the trails is another. Can this world-class frame design mask the extra weight of these basic parts? Or is the budget spec going to hold a killer frame design back when riding gets fast and chunky? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the first impressions, and I'll see you on the trails.